agreed. And as for Glory, I think he has shown us almost every end of the spectrum. Glory at his peak seems absolutely untouchable. He even dethroned Surrender as the highest points earner in the Swiss portion. He took a quick 3-0 sweep over Surrender in the first week of round robin. And now he's looking to once again cement himself as having the most wins. And here we see the Warrior has indeed been left up once more by a Hong Kong player.
It has, but for Glory, I want to touch on that point because now that he's doing so well in APAC GM, dominating the Swiss, doing very well so far in the round robin, he gets treated like a big boy. He gets no more gentle treatment in terms of how we're approaching his plays. He needs to be at his absolute best, and I worry, Gia, that he may not be there because we have seen in yesterday, Division B more so, a lot of players getting through to the rope, messing up because they're miscounting lethal because of the pressure, just misplaying Zephyrus in these weird situations. And it's just the fact that the pressure is getting so high as we enter the late stages of the round robin. And that has been undeniably Glory's biggest weakness so far, is he gets to the rope, he starts freaking out, gets in his own head, and he just messes up. And if he can get that under control, I think he is undeniably going to be, if not the best, top 2, along with Surrender, in APAC GM at the moment.
Yeah, very well framed in that point. And I think you bring up a really good talking point in that just being on either end of the extremes give you a bigger feeling of pressure. When you're down 0-2, so close to relegation, of course you're going to feel that everything is on the line, and that causes you to just get into a mental space that isn't ideal for playing at your best. But also, if you've been way at the top and you're getting all of this hype and just people start expecting you to have the good results week after week, sometimes that can also cause someone to crumble. Personally, I like flying under the radar a little bit, not being neither the biggest underdog nor the one that people expect to win seems the most comfortable. But for Glory, I do think that almost greater than 90% of the time, he's just been on point. It's just a couple of mistakes here and there, but I agree that I hope this week it'll be absolutely flawless from him.
Completely agree, Gia. And taking a look at his lineup, we're seeing similar to what we saw from Possessi, obviously the Dark Pharaoh to Khan version of Zeus, something the Japanese players see there that we maybe do not. I guess the big difference overall, apart from obviously the Warrior that has been left up, but in terms of his decisions, it is the Ysera that we can see still in the Druid list there instead of the slightly lighter version, which Possessi went for. And I think in this matchup in particular, it's going to work out pretty well for him. Again, we are seeing a slower lineup overall from Kin, as we've definitely come to expect, with Druid and Priest as the 2 decks that you kind of have a choice on outside of Demon Hunter and Warrior.
Yes, the Priest, I think, starting to become a signature bring for Kin ever since week 1. Maybe there was a week where he skipped it, but overall, they've been trying different archetypes on it. And for this week, he's landed back on Galakron, which is, I think it's pretty opposite to what we're seeing from Tyler, where the week that he was bringing Galakron, it was Resurrect from Kin and vice versa, because right now Tyler has Resurrect. So I wonder what the thinking is behind that in particular.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the version that we see here, the Galakron version of Priest at the moment. I feel like there's too many decks at the moment that just can get underneath what the Resurrect Priest is trying to do. And I think it was actually Blitzchung.
Sorry, it wasn't Tyler, right? Yeah. It wasn't Tyler, that's my bad.
Right, okay. Well, overall, it's just an interesting point no matter what, in that we are seeing Blitzchung and Kin going with these different styles this week. Blitzchung, of course, with his signature playstyle of a lot quicker, whereas Kin going a lot slower with his lineup, but still coming to the same conclusion that not banning Warrior is the way to go for these players. But as I was saying, I think the Galakron Priest is so much more consistent. It can populate the board so much quicker, but it still does incredibly powerful things, specifically in Kin's version of the deck, in the version where you're playing a Wild Pyromancer and 2 copies of Apotheosis. I don't know if you've ever been hit with a life-stealing Wild Pyromancer before, Gia, but it is not a fun experience.
I definitely have before. In the old Paladin combos, I think. It is pretty spicy, I have to say, but it comes at the cost of, I think, cutting 1 Sethic Veil Weaver. And in terms of having to just sometimes play a 2-drop, which happens a lot in aggressive matchups. You don't have the time to get to the big combos, so you concede that, okay, let me just develop something to put in the way before I can get to my AoE spells. I think that the 2-3 shape is definitely more beneficial defensively than a 3-2.
Fair enough, Gia. But do you know what else is beneficial for your game plan? Holding on to Dark Pharaoh Takan and then drawing Imp and Hand of Gul'dan
Oh my gosh.
just off the top like an absolute mad lad. To be fair, the Scrap Imp here is not the most powerful one I've ever seen. Dark Pharaoh Takan is so much less important of a buff from a 4-4 to a 6-6 than buffing a 1-drop, it's got to be said. And Zephyrus, you don't really want to play early on if you can avoid it. But if he can hit just a couple of decent minions off the tap, Glory is still off to such a powerful start.
Yeah, just the tap alone really raises the power. Oh, I was going to say, certain draws make this Imp extremely backbreaking for Kin, and that is the exact one. Expired Merchant. Man, Kin has got to find a way to deal with tons of premium minions.
He does, because Glory here is showing why, well, one of the reasons why he's right at the top of the table in terms of the overall matchup, because he has just been so consistently hitting these absurd draws. He's been playing them well, but he's had a dollop of luck along the way, as you need to get right up to the top.
I wonder about the usage of Madame Lazul this turn versus, say, Mind Flayer cards just for the tempo. Because the Lazul
really
played next turn can discover a buffed minion instead of just the regular size minion, right?
True, but Mind Flayer Kaj, if you're copying anything at all, obviously you don't get the buffed version on the Death Rattle, but I feel like that can be such a big difference.
Well, in any case...
No, he wasn't hoping to hit Hand of Gul'dan. I was wondering if there was any way he could discard that, but no, I don't think so.
Already, it's looking so brutal for Kin. He doesn't even have something like Holy Nova or Breath of the Infinite to set up over 2 turns.
Trying to think of a reason why you'd copy the Orc Merchant instead of the Fiendish Servant, and I'm not coming up with anything.
Yeah, I don't know.
Dark Pharaoh Takan doesn't interact with it anyway. Weird.
Yeah.
Oh well. Probably a slightly weird choice there. Oh, why you wouldn't just... Did he pick the Imp and I just didn't see it properly? Because, like, just take the Imp. It's just a 3-3 Death Rattle.
Right. Because when it's resummoned, it's the unbuffed version.
Right, exactly. Maybe just a slight oversight there. Didn't really... It was considering some other things at the time. But that is quite uncharacteristic of Kin. If I saw correctly, maybe my eyes deceived me, because he has been one of the most methodical players that we've seen.
But you know what, Derek? I don't think we're ever gonna get to see it, because this card's just protected, and Glory doesn't care, because he wasn't gonna trade with it anyway. There's just no reason. No highly punishing AoE is available as early as now. It would have to be combinations of double Breath of the Infinite plus Holy Nova or Soul Mirror.
Yeah, there are cards that can keep Kin going here, for the very least. If he can find Apotheosis, as I was saying, to combo with the Wild Pyromancer, that would be absolutely premium. And also, just he's not that far away from a top deck of Soul Mirror to hopefully save him.
Yep. Glory now has hand space issues, but I think it's fine. You can just trade off the Expired Merchant, not get the Death Rattle, then trade off his Fiendish. Will have a 7 attack Imp that can go face, and he can redevelop alongside that.
Love it. Love everything I'm hearing right now.
But the rest of the turn involves playing other minions, so if he wants to, say, play the Sinister Deal, he could start with that. But even just the Takan, I don't mind.
Yeah. And there it is, the Orc Merchant. I'm still just left perplexed by that, because it is just so uncharacteristic of Kin.
Almost out of time.
Does he perhaps not want to get the attack onto the Scrap Imp and put it on maybe a 50-50 Voidwalker instead? Nope. It is just going to be this. I like it. Kin...
It's just a 6-6 as well with the buff. I was saying it's not as important as a 1-drop, but it's still pretty big.
This is not the worst for Kin. He could go renew and then time rip. Does this open up options with Wild Pyro for the next turn? It's looking to me like he has to time rip now, though.
It does look that way. I'm wondering what he can hit. Like, he can trade Pyro Whispers of Evil, but it's still a 6 attack minion on the board.
So he could rush this. Evil Genius... Oh, he's got the Kut Pick on as well. I forgot.
Oh yeah, of course. That was the nuts. The Whispers of Evil.
Quickly.
Oh, wow. Yep, Shadow Madness lines up well against the natural 1 attack minions that get buffed to 3
Whoa.
attack.
And that is the new mage minion. Cannot remember the name of it for the life of me. Apologize, but it summons a spell when it draws a spell when it dies.
Very
Which
relevant. A single
Fantastic
AoE.
here.
Yeah.
That's huge.
But the draw of Carpet also huge for Glory.
These are all 4/4s on both sides. This is lackey heaven for both of these players.
They've been promoted from lackeys to what's the is it Colonel or Sergeant? I don't know how it works in the League of Evil, the hierarchy. So he can rush in the Fiendish Servant, trade off into, I guess, Evil Genius?
The Fiendish Servant isn't buffed, and neither is the Stone Tusk War. Okay, because I was wondering if they were both buffed, he was approaching lethal there, but not quite.
Yep. I like getting more stats on board, just the lackey immediately.
He's got to be shipping that face, right?
Right, I don't see a very good reason for taking this trade, because that just makes it worse into the AoEs, right?
Yeah, you are very susceptible to both Breath of the Infinite and Holy Nova, and just a Pyromancer nonsense at this point, of which he's going to draw another spell.
The thinking from Glory might be that he wants to preserve the carpet more so than the other minions, just because he has a ton of 1-drops in hand. But I think that's actually kind of counterintuitive. I think he should be pushing face damage rather than preparing to swing board against Kin, which is what the carpet would offer.
A 6 attack minion is a very big deal.
Oh man. Shadow
Look at
Madness! This is so clean. My gosh. Woo.
Complete blowout here. And obviously it's not over. Glory has plenty of way to keep developing onto the board. That is another Scrap Imp for more pressure.
And another
But
Evil
Kin is
Genius
going to start developing the board himself.
that could give more lackeys. You're right though. We could just see a Murazon next turn just as an 8/8++. But if it means you get to play your own Evil Genius and a bunch of lackeys, and you don't get the battle cry from Evil Genius in terms of destroying a minion. But he probably won't have the time because he's facing down 8 on the opposite side. There's Soulfire in the deck. Wait, sorry, there isn't from Glory.
Yeah, that's one of the cards he's cutting.
So in that case, can you just go?
Yeah, maybe.
Murazon. It is ballsy.
Weirdly enough there, Bane of Doom was one of the cards I was looking at just for 2 damage face.
All right.
To try and close out the game.
I like how you think. But what about trying to draw more so that Zephyrus is active?
That sounds good too.
So at worst, Kin can just go Breath of the Infinite, Magic Carpet, rush the sidekick and clear off 2 things. It seems really slow though. Yeah, I like this. Got a chance of getting rid of 4 damage. He heals up and sets up for the Kronks for next turn.
Indeed, and that's what he's going to need. That should be very, very well positioned against whatever Glory does, because 4/4 all dies to 5 damage AoE. So 6 plus 6 from Savage Roar. It's not quite there. Oh, Stone Tusk Ball. Oh, you don't have enough mana, Stone Tusk Ball, Savage Roar.
Man. Next turn, though, if even a couple minions fix, that could just be lethal. from the Zephyrus.
Obviously, he's got to be afraid of Kronks, but he could have gone Nightshade Matron plus aiming sidekick there instead.
He can still buff a 4 health minion here, but instead
Chose
he's
not
putting...
to, though.
I don't know about that.
Obviously, he's playing around Holy Nova and Breath of the Infinite with this play.
But it's also worse against Soul Mirror, right?
Yep.
I think it's better to play around the 1-card AoEs instead of a combo of 2. Wait, the combo of 2 also screws with him here. I don't know. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, it's better against a single AoE removal spell. He's going to get the disastrous news here.
To be full clear, of course, the Scrap Imp withstands it. Glory needs to stick minions in order to get
so
the Savagery.
close.
Yeah.
To getting there with just Zephyrus, but I don't think it's quite there.
I mean, this is a big swing now. Discards another hand. Can develop more 4/4s with this evil genius.
Mm-hmm.
Useful things.
And then he'll just be praying that the Soul Mirror isn't there. Health buff in certain cases would be relevant, but Kronks is able to trade down whatever gets taunted. Oh, okay, he could... Oh, I'm surprised he didn't buff the health on that.
I guess he's going to, again, go for the buff on the 2 health minion to play around those small AoEs again, now that he's seen Kronks.
Alright, yeah, that's fair, that's fair.
Now he goes for the buff on the big minion this time.
Yeah. Well, this creates a perfect Godfrey clear, but the most awkward probably for the breadth of all of Kin's options, because double AoE leaves up the 4/6. Soul Mirror also leaves up the 4/6. So I guess it would be like Soul Mirror plus Breath of the Infinite.
Yeah. It is really difficult to play around all these AoEs. We're still kind of figuring it out as we move along as well.
You could just see Breath of the Infinite, Magic Carpet, Beaming Sidekick. It's a lot of resources used though, so I don't mind this from Kin, leaving up 1 Lackey and then dealing with 2 minions. Savage Roar is still a little bit short, but how much is Bloodlust actually? It's still short as well, I think. It is 1 off?
4, 3, 6, 1 off as I count it.
Yeah. So does
Is there anything
Glory...
we're not seeing in a demon? Is that just lethal? No.
No. Oh, Gorhal! Gorhal is lethal.
Is Gorehowl exact lethal?
I think so. Yeah. He's got the mana.
Whoa!
That is perfect for Glory. Oh my gosh, Zephyrus coming in clutch there.
It has been a while here since I've seen the Gorehowl come in for clutch, and I think you can see Glory just as relieved there, because he could feel that game slipping away from him, despite his insane starting hand, getting all the cards you want at the start, the Tikan, the Imp, the Hand of Gul'dan, getting the discard effect on turn 2 with the Expired Merchant as well. Everything was going his way, but by throwing his board into a perfect Kronks clear, he almost just lost all the damage he had to close it out.
It was very scary there for Glory, and I think Kin made the best he could of his hand turning the corner at the appropriate time. He had options to clear the board but not develop anything. I think his timing for Galakrond was excellent, but just at the end they're unable to play around Zephyrus. And you know what? That is just a point for including it in the deck in the first place. It's not an auto-include in Zoo, but alongside Tikan, it gave Glory the late game fuel to just go with Priest.
And I think this is one of the few instances where we're seeing the fact that you know who your opponents are going to be before you start prepping for the week coming into effect here for Glory by making a very greedy build of Zoo, as we're seeing. Tikan plus the Zephyrus, which is not a common build of the deck at all, gave him the staying power he needs to overtake these slow control-ish decks for Kin that he is so favorable of. So I think overall, again, It's the prep that is working so well for Glory time and time again here, who does go up 1-0 up against Kin. But if he wants to get up to 3-0, the first undefeated player at 3 wins in Division A, he is going to have to keep it up after this quick break.
Language Hacker, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, Subtle, thank you for having me.
Oh, no, the pleasure is mine.
I assure you, Subtle, the pleasure is all mine.
Would you like to have a seat?
Yeah, sure. After you, of course.
Oh, no, you're the guest. You sit.
I don't think I can. I need you to sit down, Subtle.
Okay. No, really,
Subtle, please just sit down.
Okay, together. 3, 2, 1, sit.
Okay.
3.
On sit or on one?
We go 3, 2, 1, sit on 0.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, sit. Damn it. 1-0 to me, hi. Actually, before we get started, do you want a bottle of water or anything I can get for you?
No, thank you, but I actually did just make you some hot tea. I know it's your favorite.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, it's good, but you forgot the lemon.
Don't forget the lemon.
Damn, this guy's good. I gotta focus.
How's Grace?
Oh, she's great. Thanks for asking. How does he know my wife's name?
And Kupo and Shinx?
And how on earth does he know the names of my cats? Oh, they're good. That's incredible. You don't forget anything, do you?
Well, Subtle, we Canadians like to remember things about our friends.
That's so sweet. I don't know what to say. Wow, I didn't even realize we were friends.
You don't have to say anything, Subtle. I'm just happy to be here with my 4th favorite caster.
Wow, what a guy. Wait, 4th? What the
Welcome back, one and all, to Hearthstone Grandmasters here in the Asia-Pacific region, where we are potentially on the cusp. Once again, I will reiterate, Gia, from seeing our first player in Division A go up 3-0, and there could not be a more fitting player to do so than Glory up against Kin.
It would be an extremely hot streak for Glory after winning the whole Swiss portion, if we talk about points totals. And if he gets up to a 3-0 start, I think that's starting to rival Swids over in Europe in terms of just GM dominance within their own. He's got a win with Zoo already, which is a very big deal because we consider it as one of the number 3, number 4 decks, whereas Warrior and Demon Hunter are probably either going to get a win or a ban.
Yes, they are indeed. As we see the Demon Hunter once again getting the ban here for Glory from Kin. Consistent strategy. At the very least, they are sticking with their guns. And I know you were talking a little bit about with Blitzchung about their decision to not ban Warrior. I don't think it quite transitioned over to Kin's strategy, given that he has 2 very different decks in his 3rd and 4th slot with no Highlander decks, and instead going with a slower lineup. But it still, I think, does leave Glory in a pretty fantastic position, because the only matchup I think you could argue that Warrior is unfavored in is the Priest. And even then, I'm not necessarily buying it.
Yeah, I think that I can pick up some of the concepts that Blitzchung was talking about. The way that they actually approach bans is not by banning the overall power level deck, but what I took from that conversation is that they try to make sure that all of their remaining decks, after what they expect to be banned away from them, have at least one good matchup in order to get a win. Because with Conquest, you do have to make sure that every deck manages to sneak in a win there. So the idea behind banning Warrior a lot of the time is that you will have maybe 2 decks with higher win rates, and maybe the third one has a sub 50% win rate against at least one of the remaining decks. But if you're giving that deck several chances to win, you're probably still going to get there. With the Hong Kong players' mindset, it's more like they're taking the average ban to make sure that every single deck is closer to the 50% win rate.
Yeah, it's an unconventional approach to Conquest, and not one that I've really heard people go for all too much before. And clearly, it is not the prevailing strategy, with almost everyone else just insta-banning the Warrior. But we'll have to see if it can turn things around this week for Kin. The problem is, of course, you can't guarantee yourself which matchup you're going to queue into.
And I think we're already seeing here, of course, extreme dominance from Demon Hunter in the early game. Glory has the response of the Coin Innervate Glowfly, but he'll be taking so much damage in the meantime. And because of Demon Hunter's favor in this matchup, I think that's another reason for Kin's mindset. Not saying I necessarily agree, but given their philosophy of Conquest bans, that's why he's banning Demon Hunter over Warrior. He feels that his own Druid would have a better shot of getting through the Warrior from Glory instead of the Demon Hunter. At least that's how I understand it. Not quite on board with the thinking, but now it makes sense that it's not so much a disrespect for Warrior's power level overall, but just a difference in the way you approach Conquest.
Yes, I think at this point you would be crazy not to respect the power of Warrior, even as difficult as it is to play. But within the specifics of this game, you can clearly see already the difference between the lists. Glory does not run Starfall, and even if he hadn't drawn it here, it maybe would have deterred Kin from going for quite such a 2 health on all minions game plan as he's done here. And Glory has to therefore respond with the much slower play that's going to take a lot more damage of the Glowfly.
Yeah. I mean, it's only this close at all because Glory had exactly Coin Innervate Glowfly with Bungle leading up to it. It's not often that Druid gets to play the Glowfly on turn 3, and I feel like that's one of the few situations where it can actually go toe-to-toe with Demon Hunter pressure. And now, Glory is trade down the whole board and use Wrath if he wants to. I think Power of the Wild plus Wrath looks good to me because he's able to take 2 value trades on top of that.
I mean, there are a lot of very valid lines here. Soul of the Forest, as he's reaching for, just leaves him very far ahead on board. Overgrowth, I would hear the merits for, even because you get to trade out the board, and then your Iron Bark and Bulk Beam becomes active. I guess you don't have much to combo with this, so that's probably a bit too slow.
It's not already active, right? It would be active next turn, so he couldn't...
On the following turn, sorry. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Overall, this does leave Glory the most pressure on board. He didn't have to be too scared of a singular 2-2 like Edwin Van Cleef. And now he gets a bigger payoff from the buff cards later on. He will have to start worrying about the lack of healing in hand, though.
Can, of course, however, quite comfortably ramp up to 7 mana on the following turn using Wild Growth, which I really like over the Overgrowth, because it gets him to the point where the Iron Barks cost 0, which is a huge difference, but it also allows him to chuck down a Power of the Wild or Wrath here.
Well, if you Overgrowth now, then everything is active, right?
Oh, you can do it right now. Oh, okay, I didn't consider that.
I like the look of that, actually. It's a little bit awkward with the mana usage. And this way, he still gets to trade down everything. But it might be a little bit weaker against exactly Warglaves with Azzinoth. Not that Kin wants to ship that much damage into these minions. I expect to see at most just the 3-3 traded down.
That's definitely what I'm looking at as well. Although, if he goes this way, it does play around Iron Bark a little bit more if he clears off all of them.
But
then he wouldn't set up lethal. Yeah.
I feel that the options there were clear 1 or clear all. I don't know about leaving up exactly 1 because of what you said, Iron Bark, as an option. What it does do, though, is leaves Kin with enough damage to deal lethal next turn while getting rid of the most pressure on the other side of the board. He is gonna run into the punish though. Not one, but 2 Iron Barks available.
Yeah, hard punish here. He is not getting through these anytime soon, even with a Twin Slice off the top. He can stay alive with that draw.
Right.
But shipping 4 damage into an Eagle sounds awful.
It really does. I think he can actually clear off everything but the 4-3, given that the second attack after the glaive goes in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But then he will be left with the 6-4 versus 4-3, which doesn't line up very nicely at all.
Right, yeah.
Demons?
And that does mean he would go down to 6 health, be dead to 1 additional damage off the top.
Yeah. Whereas if he just takes out the 4-3, he has got a little bit more health to work with. At least immediately.
But how does he get his own lethal if there's in the way?
Our enemies will fall.
I guess the hope here for Kin is that the glaive bound survives to be able to trade into the 5-6. I think it is very reasonable.
Love starting with the draw here for Glory. He has the chance to just find some extra healing off the crystal power to lock out the game.
So for outs from Kin, I'm thinking it's got something to do with Skull. Not a singular draw is going to get him out of this one.
I think Metamorphosis might be able to get the job done for him here.
Not this turn, though.
Well, he
That
can
is
kill
an
off the 5-6, right? And then next turn, try and take the win. He could start with that, yeah.
But that is not even a way to remove the 5-6. So Glory takes it there in a heavily unfavored matchup, I would say, with the early Glowfly. Always so crucial against Demon Hunter.
Yeah, very, very nicely done there by Glory overall. The Coin Innovate Glowfly, you know, it was the only play, and it was the only play that kept him alive with any real chance. But I think his decision to go for the play of Soul of the Forest, exactly, turned out to be a really, really nice one. Because obviously if there was a Warglaives off the top, instead of a Sigil Bearer, or Sigil Runner, I think it was, he would have had his entire board wiped. But that's still an entire Warglaives taken care of. That's always a good card against you as Demon Hunter. And it really just gave him the chance to start pushing back for counter pressure, as he did very, very nicely.
Yes, indeed. And that is looking pretty stressful now for Kin, now that Glory's got 2 of his decks out of the way. And the remaining one is what we believe to be the highest power level deck in the whole meta, the Warrior, which is running, I think, pretty much the standard list right now, including the Grom, No More Eggs, double 12 years.
Yes, this is the, I think, like the kind of true Pain Warrior or the Taunt Warrior that we've been calling it instead of Egg Warrior. It's kind of difficult in terms of the taxonomy of how you're branding the different warriors. Personally, this is the version of the deck that I'm the biggest fan of. I like either going for the Egg version or maybe including the Captain Greenskin in the list, just because it gives you a little bit more burst potential in terms of your weapons consistently going face.
Okay.
But to be honest, I haven't experimented with the 12 years too much personally.
I think that they're a good call in a meta full of Rogue. Now that we bring up that Rogue has fallen off in popularity, and I think it was reasonable to expect that it would fall off in popularity when submitting lists for this week, maybe the 12-year is there for a different purpose for Glory.
They will never catch me.
It's rare that you get a truly awful hand as Warrior, but this already fairly ragtag-looking bunch of cards, I think, is looking pretty premium to get things rolling.
Oh, yes. Just the Warmaul coined out on turn 3. That leaves you with a 1-8 lined up against the 2-1. Or if he likes, the Live Wire, get it down immediately to deal with the Blazing Battle Mage.
Yeah, that would mean that if he expects a Satyr Overseer on turn 3, that could be pretty powerful. The downside, of course, is if a Frozen Shadow Weaver comes down and freezes his minion, he's looking pretty bad. And therefore, to play around that, I really like just going Warmaul here, especially given that he could just copy it next turn now if he needs.
Oh, yes. Probably not the best option, given that Kin is able to get down the Sailor Overseer, but in a different world where, say, smaller minions were developed, the Bloodsworn is absolutely premium there. Glory is, however, I think, forced to get rid of this Overseer.
Oh, yes. It sucks to not be able to take out the either of the other 2/2s. They can start value trading into the Warmal just to bring it down to size, or just going face if he doesn't believe in the Armorsmith.
Yep.
Is it cold in the
Now comes the Crossroads. Kin has actually no option to even kill the Warmal, so that makes the decision for us. Because we were talking about how the Hong Kong players seem to have a different strategy for Warrior than we're used to seeing, which is just making sure to remove things as much as possible. But right now, it is neither feasible nor cheap, but this is the punish.
Yeah, this is absolutely huge here for Glory. If he traded in Kin, he would have been left with a minion with much less health here, which would have been easier to kill off. But is it worth playing around this exact punish?
Probably not. I don't think he would have been able to kill the Warmal even. He could have put it down to lower health.
Yes,
Still,
yeah.
This is quite a lot of damage coming through, but Glory has the perfect full armor smith if he wants. And Kin's thinking about, if he plays another minion, that's just one more thing that Glory's minions can trade into.
So
Because
you're
as
just
it
saving it for
stands-
Altruist here.
Yeah. I think that is the bigger reason, but as it stands, if he plays the Frenzied Fellwing, that's actually gaining Glory more armor, because right now he can only attack with 2 minions into the Shadow Weaver before it dies. But wow, Skipper! Ah!
Oh! Look at that! This is insane!
Uh-huh.
Just as like a baseline play,
see
trade
it.
in the 1/1, play all 3 of your minions. How does that lose?
There's a very niche out for Kin. Actually, maybe it's not so niche after everything takes a lot of damage of Altruist clearing up that board, and if you have no minions left, suddenly the Battle Rages are dead cards. So we see Glory here, very disciplined, taking the Battle Rage over the second Armorsmith. I think this is super smart.
Okay. So this plays around the chance for Altruist to just sweep the board and then take the game thereafter, you're saying?
Still leaves a lot of minions, and Kin is unlikely, I think, to deal 14, if not impossible, with that board state. So he would still have to sink damage into the Armorsmith, at which point Glory can just refill, use the second one if he needs to.
Oh man, this Altruist just doesn't look like it's getting anywhere close, even with a full board clear available here.
Because of the choice of Battle Rage. Very heads up from Glory.
Yeah. It's a great point you bring up.
Still.
Oh wait, it's not even a full board clear because he has to go face here. Yeah.
Right. So, pretty simple for Glory. I think he can just play the other Armorsmith, the other Normal Challenger. Sure, start with the Lackey draw. Bold could be a very big deal here. The perfect one as well. This is over.
I challenge you to Makara!
And yet, it would have been kind of close had not been exactly the second Armorsmith for Glory, because then Kin just has to wait for Skull or Glaive Bound and just keep going face, probably outpaces the natural 2 armor gain from Glory. So don't be deceived by how one-sided this looks at the end.
Are there any outs at this point though for Kin, or is this truly over? If he hits Skull into another Warglaives, is there any chance?
There probably is, as long as he doesn't develop more minions, and we see Glory currently doesn't have another skipper. For Kin, he just has to hope that there isn't another skipper, that the Armorsmith will not net Glory any more armor. You see him not bothering to develop minions for that reason.
But we must be getting pretty close to just straight up lethal here with double Inner Rage, Corkron, Rampage.
5 right
That alone
now.
is an additional 11 damage.
Yep. It's just
So not
4
quite there.
off.
But the important thing is that of course, damages his minions to gain more armor.
Could also play a cash, draw Anchor,
Someone's
and
gotta lead the
try to
charge.
Ski Skipper, which is also a lot of armor, but I don't think it's guaranteed. This is the first Sky Raider.
That play sounds very cash money to me, Gia. I'm on board.
It's not lethal now, it is surely lethal
Oh.
next turn, and he gets the Skipper anyway.
I'll show you
Yep.
who's boss.
Altruis is gone. This board isn't being cleared up, and the amount of armor gain here is just absolutely game-ending.
Glory doesn't seem to be very happy with his play here. I think it has something to do with
He
board
wants
space.
to copy, I think. Yeah.
Your flaw.
It's
Being the
game-winning
safest
anyway.
he can. Yeah.
There we go. Kin throws it down and is, I believe, our first player in Division A to go down to 0-3, sadly for him, after a very, very strong run through the Swiss portion of Grandmasters. But Glory, on the other side, he's our first player to go up 3-0. Is there any stopping this man, Gia?
Certainly doesn't feel like it. That is not only 3-0 in the match score, but I think his second 3-0 sweep to get to the 3-0 match score, the first one being over surrender. So
Right.
that's just him sweeping some of the greatest players in the entire region, and no sweat off his back. Props to Glory. I think the lists look good, the preparation looked good, and the overall gameplay I have no qualms with.
Me neither. I like, again, his slightly greedier takes on the deck, slotting the Ysera back into his Druid, putting the Zephyrus in his Zoo decks. I think it gives him game against whoever else he faces this week. I'll have to take a look at the schedule to see who that's going to be. But the main thing is it just gives him really strong chance to take out Kin, who is known for these slightly more greedy decks, which consistently has just been proving Glory's biggest strength in Grandmasters is his preparation.
Yes. That is condolences to Kin, though. I think that he had very good lines as well, especially on the Priest game. I think he did the best he could.
Yep.
It's just that I feel that some of his draws didn't line up very well, or maybe in that particular game against Druid, there was not much to be done against the super early Glowfly for full board, and maybe that's not the average outcome for
Right.
how Kin expects these matchups to be going, but it also feels like maybe the lineups have to be changed up a little bit for Kin in the following weeks.
Something's got to change. I mean, it was just a little bit weird overall. There were things that I just never expected to see from Kin, like copying the wrong minion with
Right.
Kaj.
Smart.
Again, I hate coming back to it, but Kin so rarely makes these obvious mistakes. Any misplays he is making are usually big macro decisions that even then are just tiny mistakes that come with an overall very good macro plan. But I agree, something has to change up here for Kin. Whether he goes to Blitzchung and says, you know what, our strategy to leave up Warrior just isn't working, and we're going to have to turn
Well,
things around.
Blitzchung can immediately refute that argument with his own score, right?
Very true. Very, very true. Something isn't working for these players, though. But taking a look at our next match that we have up here for today, Gia. We are going to have, of course, Chonsu versus Rivius for our next game. Which is looking, I think, like it should be a good one. Two South Korean players going up against each other here. And Rivius is a player who usually gives us something pretty spicy, I think it's fair to say.
Right.
But it's gone a little bit more conventional this week.
Yeah, no Quest Warlock this week, unfortunately. He is playing two matches instead of just the one this weekend, so maybe that's one too many